Let's do a July garden tour. What's up, YouTube friends? Welcome back to Horticulture Geek. I'm Ray, and thank you so much for joining me here today in the garden. It is a beautiful July morning. It's not too warm out here. The humidity is about to get me, but that's okay because we are due for a garden tour. And I wanted to show you the state of the garden here in July. So we're gonna flip the camera around here in a second and just go for a nice stroll around and look at everything and see how it's all progressing in this heat here in July. So I hope you will enjoy it. Sit back, relax. Let's flip the camera around and see what we can see. All right, we're gonna start right here at the bottom of the garden at my canna lily bed, and they have just been blooming, blooming, blooming. And they're looking really pretty. Now these cannas do not receive full sun all day long. And so you can see they're shorter than what a canna should be. Their blooms aren't quite as large as what a canna bloom should be, but they are still blooming. They are still doing their thing. So I think it's a good filler here because you have to remember there's just a small slither of dirt there between the privacy fence and the concrete. So these come up every year. They're a good perennial. They fill the space, then they look good. Here we have some lemon balm that is really way past the point of needing to be cut back. Lemon balm is a beast. It just goes nuts. That is one plant. So, but it smells wonderful. Pollinators love it. And if you like herbal remedies, it has some really good herbal healing properties, I guess you could say, which you could look all that up. Here we have an Italian cypress, and I have not planted anything around it because we just moved it here not too long ago. In this bed, I meant to plant cucumbers, and I just let the summer get away from me and never did it. So I've recently seeded zinnias. So you can see there's zinnias popping up everywhere. I used several zinnia packets that were probably 2.5 to 3 years old. There's 3 or 4 packages in here. So some areas didn't really get a good germination because the seeds were so old, and that's okay. Whereas some areas had crazy germination. But overall, I think we're gonna have a beautiful stand of zinnias here and really soon. Moving on, ignore my kids' plasma cars. They just part of the garden. We have some peppers. So we've got jalapeno peppers here. I mean, they're doing wonderful. We've been harvesting peppers all summer so far. They've been doing really good. And then over here, we've got our bell peppers. So, I've got one scorching here. I need to get it in. But they've been doing good. And then these are Cubanelle peppers right here. So, they're looking good. We've got our wall basket here. And then let me reach in here. And this is Agastache Kudos Silver Blue. And look, there's a honeybee right there. This is an absolute pollinator attractor. Let me stick my little tag back in there. And I've got several of this variety of Agastache planted around, or Agastache. I mean, depending on where you live, you'll say it differently. But isn't that pretty? I mean, this is really traditionally used as a perennial, or not a perennial, as a in-ground planting. And I decided I wanted it on that wall basket, and I just think it's beautiful the way it's billowing out. Here I've got some dahlias that I just needed to plop in the ground somewhere, and I've got some green beans planted behind them, and they seem to be doing pretty well together. So you can see I've got some green beans here ready to pick. And then my dahlias are here. This big dahlia right here, look at that, isn't that gorgeous? And this is a bloom that has been here for over a week now, so it is no longer in prime, but it is still just beautiful. And I don't know the variety on any of these dahlias because these all came out of a mixed bag. So they were non-labeled species out of a mixed bag. We have another Italian cypress next to our grapevine. And then here we have the front of the shed. Let me back up so you can see that. Looking really pretty these days. So here we've got some asparagus fern underplanted with some dianthus just for a little pop of color. Here we've got our tater tot arb. And then in our big planters we have the Alberta dwarf spruce underplanted with a heuchera that's in full bloom, a hosta, and an English ivy. So no flowers in the big pots, just texture and greenery, which I enjoy. Same exact thing over here on this side. This is a Supertunia Vista bubblegum. This is in pretty much shade all day long here. And so you can see it's not as vigorous as it would be in full sun, obviously, but it still blooms and still gives a pop of color here. So I appreciate it. And it is planted under just a regular old bush shrub rose. Real pretty daylily going on right here. And then here's another Supertunia Vista bubblegum, and it is planted under a hibiscus. And this thing has been blooming its head off. I've got several buds that will open today. But you can see this deep color on this. It's just, they're really pretty. Salvia. Oh, here's a zinnia. I've got a couple zinnias planted up in here. And here's one blooming for us. Isn't that pretty? My blueberry, one of my blueberry bushes. We've pretty much eaten all the blueberries off of this one at this point. There's a few still over there. I think I see, yep, you can see one in there. Let's swing over here and take a look at this side. So we've got our elephant ears, and then our wheelbarrow planter, which you hardly even see the wheelbarrow at this point, but we've got our hostas poking out underneath the wheelbarrow, and then I've got caladiums in the wheelbarrow, and I actually have some impatiens in there, and a begonia that's not doing very well. And here is my hydrangea right here. This has been a terrible begonia year for me. I've not had very good luck with begonias. More caladiums around this fountain, and then just a hanging basket of these beautiful impatiens. All right, so it is a different day now, as you can clearly see. I ran out of time the other morning. And then I had a huge rainstorm come through. Some of you may have saw that in the community tab, where I was trying to film this July garden tour, and we had a just massive gully washer of a storm come through, and it was terrible. So the garden has had a day or so to recover now. Things have rebounded, and I'm gonna pick this video back up here. It is a terribly, terribly hot day. We reached triple digits here today in central Arkansas. I think we were up to like 106, 107, somewhere in there with the heat index. So it's hot, but things are still looking pretty good. So let me flip this camera around and we're gonna continue our walk around the garden. All right, so here we are at this little corner. I've got a boxwood planted there. It needs to be trimmed terribly. I missed my trimming opportunity for boxwoods this spring, and it's too hot to do it now. You'll kill a boxwood pruning it in the heat. So this in the summer will be pruned back up to a nice shape. And this is the cream separator planter here, looking good. My crown of thorns plants looking wonderful. I love that crown of thorns. The grill. We have the maidenhair fern and the fun little cherub fountain. This hydrangea is wrapping it up, as you can see. We've got a few blooms left. These are the lace caps or the mountain hydrangeas. And so there's still a little color left on here, but they're pretty much spent at this point. Now I do have a few buds coming on, so we will still have some color on this plant. Now this bed is looking really nice this summer, here planted under the tree. So I ringed this bed with caladiums and then back planted with impatiens. And it's looking really good. I'm enjoying it. Lots of color, lots of interest. So it's looking really good. This area is looking a little mangy. There's some maintenance that needs to be done here. The bloom stalks on the coral bell needs to just come out of the heuchera. Yeah, it needs to come off. The bloom stalks on the hostas need to be pruned off. So there's our little fish in our fish pond. You see him. And for some reason, my fountain in my fish pond is not running, so I have to investigate that later. There's our tea plant right there, our camellia. And this fall, I'm pretty sure I've decided I'm gonna transplant him. This corner is just getting too jungly. I'm not really liking it. So I think I'm gonna dig the tea plant up and move it here and extend this bed out here and give that camellia a nice big space to grow right there. And then that will allow the hostas more room. It will allow the hydrangea back there more room. But you can see there's several different kinds of hostas scattered in here. So some variegated, some solids, some, just whatever, just to give color, texture, interest. This little lime hydrangea is just beautiful. Great big pretty panicles on that. Looking really good. There's my staghorn fern. I didn't show it from the other side, but it's enjoying its spot. Our wall baskets, our hanging baskets there on the fence are looking really good. Now again, like I said a minute ago, I've just had a terrible, terrible year with begonias. This basket here, the begonias have survived. You can see they've turned out to be a spiller in this pot, which is absolutely beautiful. So they're spilling out over the edges. And then the caladiums are poking up and the impatiens are filling in. But the begonias have all died out of these two baskets. So I'm not sure what's going on there. But I'm really loving these baskets. Caladiums in a basket, surrounded by other beautiful things. I mean, it just is so pretty. I love it, love it, love it. And this is something that I have seen done at other places. And so I wanted to recreate here. And I'm pretty sure that I saw this done at Gibbs Gardens in Georgia. And so I thought, well, that's a fun idea. So bring your caladium bulbs off the ground and put them in baskets, and it really works. This hydrangea obviously is blooming, looking good. This is another mountain type hydrangea. I forget the exact name of it. Here's our weeping Japanese maple in the big blue pot. So it's looking good there. My Zephyrine Druin Rose that we planted in the back corner is growing. I just planted him early spring, and he has finally made it to the top of the trellis there. And then my goal is that he will break off here and I can train him to start growing along the fence line. I think that'll be really pretty. Again, I've got some more hostas back here. Now there's a lot of empty space here, and that's because these are Empress Wu hostas, and oh gosh, another one that gets really huge. I can't remember, but these are the hostas that eventually will get 3 to 5 feet tall and wide. So I'm trying to give them lots of space because I know they'll eventually get there. This is about their 3rd year in the ground. It takes several years and lots of consistent water to get hostas that big. So we're just patiently waiting. And I have done some fill in around here. I've got a fern in there, bleeding hearts, astilbes. There's a few things planted in here. My velvet plant back there, looking really pretty. Some more ferns we've planted. Now this was just a huge, beautiful urn of begonias, and you can see it's died except for that one little section, and that little section is not looking good. So again, not sure what's going on. Maybe some of you are having similar begonia issues. If you are, let me know. Maybe there's something going on I'm not aware of. Now this right here, if you've been following me for a while, you'll know that in the fall, this past fall, after watching Linda Vodder's channel, where she did a garden tour at a friend's house, she showed a burning bush that had been pruned up in the tree form. And I absolutely loved it. And I immediately came out here last fall and pruned my burning bush up to more of a tree form. So obviously this is a multi-trunk, but I absolutely love it. The structure that it gives, it has allowed me to come in and plant these ferns and the velvet plant around the base, and I'll come in and pop a few other things in as I find things that I want. But it has just opened up a ton of planting space, and it gives so much interest back here in this corner of the garden. So I'm really enjoying it. All right, here's my big elephant ear patch. This is just a monstrosity. And I did thin this out some this past winter, and it still came back with a vengeance. So this fall and winter, I've got to thin it out much heavier than I did this year, because at this point it is just completely overgrown. It loves its spot. And it's just, as you can see here, I mean, it's suffocating out this rose bush. And the rose bush doesn't have adequate airflow, so it's getting black spot on it. So I really do have got to get this under control here. It's kind of a mess out here, guys. I did not have time to clean the concrete up and blow the patio off after that big storm. But that's okay. This is real life gardening. Now look at this. This is a beautiful pineapple mint. It's a variegated mint growing in this pot. I do have a geranium in there that is not doing the best right now, but it's okay. This is a geranium that I actually overwintered in the garage, and it did not overwinter well, but it's struggling to survive, so I'm letting it have its chance, because the pineapple mint is so good anyway that you don't even really notice it. Our sun patience in our flea market basket there that we put together earlier in our video this year. All right, here we have my dahlia patch. And again, these elephant ears are completely crowding out my dahlias. But I do have some pretty flowers in here. The sprinklers just ran not too long ago, but look at that. How pretty is that? Here's another one. So this is a blueberry plant. We went on vacation, and my house sitter, garden sitter missed this pot the whole week. So, and it's got some green left in it, so I'm letting it see if it'll rebound, but this blueberry is pretty much done. We'll see what happens. We're moving into the perennial border. Let me back up so you can get a good wide view of this here. So let's look through here and look at a few things. So here is a plum tree that was potted in a container in the front yard, and I moved it back here this spring and put it here because I needed something with a little height there. I'm not sure I love it, but we're still trying it out. Here I've got a gorgeous cleome blooming its head off. Here's a sedum fixing to go. You can see here the remnants of a foxglove. I need to trim that back at this point, but I let the foxgloves, you can see right there, I let the foxglove stay because I want it to self-seed. And so all these seed pods, I let them stay on the plant, dry up, and then once they dry up, the seeds will start sprinkling out of them. So I'm hoping that this foxglove will self-seed here. Clematis there, no longer blooming, but the spent blooms are still interesting to look at. The clematis looks a little rough for wear. It has been hot here. All right, in this container, I have a foxtail fern and a firecracker plant, I believe is what this is called. So I think that looks good. And I especially like how the orangey blooms mix with the purpley blue of the salvia there. Just a great big clump of perennial salvia. Here we have our hanging baskets. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you saw me plant up these hanging baskets, and they did not do so well. The coleus is definitely the star, and it sucks up all the water out of these baskets. I do completely water these baskets twice a day. They have a water reservoir in them, a self-watering water reservoir is in the bottom. I still fill it up twice a day, give it a good deep drink, and the Supertunia fuchsia is struggling, and the black-eyed Susan vine that is in there is struggling. You can see a bloom right up in there. Just because this coleus is such a beast, it is just taking all the available water. But it looks good, as you know, this basket looks fine. So you see the grapevine hyacinths growing up the swing arbor. Again, I plant this every year, and it puts out these sweet little blooms. This is in the bean family, so it puts out similar flowers to a sweet pea or a green bean or anything like that, but they are obviously these purple colored. They are not fragrant like a sweet pea is, but the vine is very vigorous. In my particular zone 7B, this is just an annual. It will die in the summer, so do not have to worry. I mean, die in the summer. It'll die in the winter, so I do not have to worry about this becoming invasive because it is a vigorous grower. Some pretty seed heads here on this little ornamental grass. Here we have an African daisy. The swing is getting engulfed by the vine. I'll need to come in here and do some pruning, clean that up a little bit. And then I've just kind of repeated on this side of the swing, very similar to that side. I like symmetry. So we've got the big salvia here. There's pollinators all over it. Here's the other basket. And the bees are actually working the blooms on that as well. But again, this coleus is taking over. Now this black-eyed Susan vine is doing better than the other side because this basket gets more sun than the other side. But the Super Tunia fuchsia, not so good. And the white verbena that was in there is not doing very good either. But that's okay. There's still pretty things to look at. Again, another container with the firecracker and the foxtail fern. And this is black and blue salvia. And there are some branches in here that do need to be cleaned up. I will be perfectly honest, this has been a lazy garden year for me. If you're a gardener, sometimes we all just have those years where we're a little bit lazier than other years. And so some little pruning jobs here, there, and yonder, I've just kind of let go for a while. We've just been so busy, and it's been so hot here lately that the garden, unfortunately, has not been my first priority. But that's quite all right. We all have years like that, and it is okay. So if you are a new gardener who is struggling with finding the time to stay on top of your garden, it's okay. Just do the best you can. You'll get to it when you get to it. The plants will be okay as long as you keep them watered and fertilized. All right, what's next? Okay, so here I did an Instagram photo of these the other day, which I thought was I think these are beautiful. So these are a miniature allium called Millennium. So these are Millennium alliums, and I have them in these little containers here. And they're just so stinking cute. I like them a lot. So I've got one on each side of the little gravel pathway that goes back to the seating area. There's the fountain we made a couple of years ago. Lots of viewers came to my channel after watching the how-to video on that fountain. If you haven't watched that video, hey, go check it out if you're interested in making a fountain. Here we have the Sweet Autumn Clematis. That is one plant. It does this every year. I've got a video on this on my channel that you can go and look at. But it is starting to set buds. So let me zoom in here. So you can see the little buds that it's starting to set. And it is starting to set them everywhere. This will be a blanket of highly fragrant white flowers here in about, 3 to 4 weeks, month-ish. There's the pallet bar. Real simple DIY build if you're into stuff like that. Just a couple pallets painted and some stepping stones as a bar top. This is looking really good. So I've got some creeping Jenny in there. And then I have, obviously, the orange super bells, calibrachoas. Whoo, y'all, it's hot. My brain is not thinking right. So I've got the orange calibrachoas or super bells. This is kind of a shameful mess down here. This is my potato bed. And you can kind of see we have slowly started to dig the potatoes as we need a few. But this whole bed is ready to dig, and they are delicious. Back side of the fountain here. Looking through our crepe myrtle. Pretty view there. I put my tomatoes on either side of the diving board this year. And they did all right, but just like most people, it's been a rough tomato year. So I know I've seen a lot of people on gardening Facebook groups or Instagram or whatever talking about what a bad year it's been for tomatoes. I mean, the plants are still producing, they just look terrible. So, and I've had the same issues. There's a white echinacea there. Needs to be deadheaded. You don't have to deadhead these if you don't want to. But again, I've been a lazy gardener this year. I typically come in once they get to this brown spot and nip them back a little bit so that the ones that are remaining look a little better. Here's another foxglove, perfect example of what I leave. So I've just left that entire bloom stalk, and all of these blooms, if it'll focus, have opened up and they've started to release their seeds onto the ground so that they will self-seed and come back. Here we have a dahlia. It's a pink one. There's a prettier bloom right there. Isn't that pretty? This is a milkweed. This is a volunteer milkweed, so I'm letting him come up. There's an orange echinacea hidden down in there, another black and blue salvia. My Japanese maple here is struggling. It has been struggling for many years. I did lose a couple of big branches this year though, which is very upsetting. But I've still got a lot of growth on this plant. I've given it a huge dose of fertilizer this spring. So hopefully it can start to heal and get a little better. Impatience. Lavender spilling out over the concrete here. Sunflower. So I've got some really good sunflowers off this plant this year. This is the green twister echinacea. So these come out very chartreuse green, age to the pink, and then harden off to a little bit of a duller pink. But they're really pretty. All right, here's the blueberry from this side. And there's a little tiny blueberry right there that's left on it. So, the okra, this is Clemson spineless. I planted this late, so it is not as tall as it would normally be by now if I had planted it as soon as it should be planted. But that's okay, I'm still gonna get a crop off of it. It's already starting to set pods. So, we're gonna get some okra. I still have cabbage in the ground, even though it's hot. And my Brussels sprouts. Now I have tried to be organic this year. I've been using some Captain Jack's organic spray on my Brussels sprouts, but you can see the cabbage worms have been all over this. So they show up, I spray them, they go away, then some more show up, but it's been a battle. But I am starting to get Brussels sprouts in there, as you can see. So that's good. All right. I think now let's go walk around to the front yard and, oh, we've got a visitor in the pool. Let's go walk around and look at the front yard. All right, so here we are in the front yard, and this is the gate to the back. So I'll start here and show you this. So we've got the magnolias in the big pots, and these are underplanted with Supertunia Vista Fuchsia and Supertunia Vista Snowdrift or something like that, with a white one. And they're loving life up here. The magnolias are doing great. And this is just one fuchsia and one white Supertunia. So two plants doing that. The magnolia bloom. And then in our wall baskets, we have the geranium. And I have paired that with a double calibrachoa or super bells, so the double bloom. As we just repeat that in the other baskets. And these geraniums do need to be deadheaded. Yes, I'm aware. This is a job I come out and do weekly. But if you've never deadheaded a geranium before, since we're here, might as well. So you want to take your finger, run it down the stem until you find where it connects. So let me just show you that. So there's that stem, and right there is where it connects. So I'm gonna take and I'm gonna pinch it off. See, now it's gone, and I've pinched it off right there at the connection point. That's how you properly deadhead a geranium, if you did not know that. If you just were to snap it off right here, the plant will continue to put energy into the stem that's left, and it will not focus energy on setting new blooms. So you've got to take the entire bloom stalk off to deadhead your geraniums. All right, so backed up from that, and we'll just kind of take a gander here at the front of the house. Now, again, remember, Ray's been a lazy gardener, so there are weeds in my beds, but I've got a Coleus Supertunia Vista bubblegum, I've got a lantana, and then I've got some perennials dotted up in there, and a crepe myrtle that desperately needs to have suckers trimmed out from around the base of it. But that's real life, folks. This is real gardening. I missed the trimming opportunity on my boxwoods this spring, but my boxwoods desperately need a haircut, so we'll do that this fall. My hollies need a haircut. As soon as it's not so hot, I'll get out here and do those. But then I have a tropical hibiscus planted right here in this pot, and it's underplanted with a sweet potato vine, a variegated sweet potato vine with the pink variegation. And then I have an identical planter on the other side. Daylilies in between the boxwoods. When I planted these daylilies in between these boxwoods, I thought it was just the greatest idea. And when they're blooming, they're very pretty. When they're not blooming, they're kind of a weedy mess. So this fall, I think all the daylilies are getting dug out from my front flower beds. I'm gonna rethink that. Got some gladiolas that have bloomed and are need to be deadheaded and treated. And here we are at the front door. Again, Supertunia Vista bubblegum on the ground. Some shrimp plants. Some trailing coleus. This is a coleus variety that trails and spills out. Super bells or calibrachoa in this pot. I had a verbena here, it died, and it died on this side as well, but that's okay. So overall, I think it still looks really pretty, so I enjoy it. And then here's that other urn with the tropical hibiscus and the variegated sweet potato vine. And I do have a surprise lily right here. I planted several of these. It's the only one that made it. Its blooms are just about done. But there you go. And I honestly had forgotten I had planted those bulbs. So when it bloomed, it truly was a surprise. Sometimes these are called naked ladies, depending on where you live in the country. But a surprise lily is really the more common name. And then that rounds out the other side here, where I've just repeated the orangey coleus with the Supertunia Vista bubblegum and a lantana. And again, a crepe myrtle that desperately needs to have suckers pruned out from around it. So that is the front of my house. All right, I hope you have enjoyed this garden tour. I figured we'd finish right here with a kind of a fun view of the garden. This is one of my favorite peaks of the garden. You can kind of see through the plants and through the Japanese maple to the swing back there. But I hope you've enjoyed it. It took me several days to film this because of a huge rainstorm and running out of time, and then the incredible heat. So you may notice that it starts and stops a couple times, and my clothes change a few times, but hopefully that's okay. And that you just enjoyed the video, seeing how the garden's doing, what's going on here at Horticulture Geek in July, the hot month of July. I hope you guys are out there enjoying your gardens. Hopefully something here gave you some inspiration. If you have any questions about anything, hey, feel free to shoot those in the comment section down below. I would love to try to answer those questions. I didn't name every single plant that we looked at. I just kind of went through and did some highlights. So if you've got any questions, just let me know down in the comments, and I will be happy to try to help. My next video that's coming out, I did want to give a plug here. The next video that's coming out will have a prize drawing. So stay tuned for that. If you have not subscribed to the channel yet or hit that notification bell, I would encourage you to do that so that you'll know when that video goes live. And I will be giving away a couple of items to a couple lucky viewers, and that could be you. So stay tuned for that video to see what's getting given away and how I'm going to present it to you guys, and then give you the details in that video of how to enter the drawing. But again, like I said, I hope you've enjoyed this tour video. Thank you so much for coming along on the journey. And until next time, guys, from my garden to yours, I wish you all the best and happy gardening.